He looked me in the eye and said no man would ever marry a woman like me. We were standing in the glass corridor of the firm I now control. He thought he was measuring my worth. He didn't realize he was positioning himself beneath it. My name is Simone Carter. I'm 29 years old, and this is what really happened. The first thing I remember is the sound. Patent leather heels striking marble, elevator cables humming above 28 floors, the soft click of a conference room door sealing shut. And his voice. Smooth, casual, almost amused. No man would marry a woman like you. We were standing in the glass corridor overlooking Lake Michigan. Late October. Wind whipping gray waves into white edges. Chicago looking expensive and cold. He adjusted his tie like he had just offered helpful advice. I didn't flinch. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I just smiled, because what he thought was an insult felt like a revelation. We worked at the same firm. Mid-level associates. 6th-year track, dating quietly for almost a year. Marcus Hale, litigation. Ivy League polished. Family money subtle but obvious. The kind of man who never sweats through his suit. I was corporate restructuring, scholarship kid from Detroit, Howard Law grad, student loans still very real. We met during a late-night Discovery review, bonded over bad Thai takeout and shared exhaustion. He liked that I was driven, until he realized I wasn't slowing down. That afternoon started with something small. I told him I was considering transferring to the New York office if the merger rumors were real. He laughed. You're already intense, Simone. He leaned against the glass. No man wants a wife who's competing with him. I folded my arms. Competing how? He shrugged. You don't prioritize relationships. You prioritize winning. I waited. Then he delivered it. No man would marry a woman like you. Like me. Ambitious, direct, not soft enough. The fluorescent lights reflected off the glass walls, bouncing between us like witnesses. I let the silence sit. Then I said, calm and even, good thing I'm not interviewing for a husband. He smirked. That's not how it works. Maybe not. But I decided, in that moment, it could be. The smell of burnt espresso drifted from the lobby cafe downstairs. Someone had overpulled a shot again. It lingered in the air, bitter and sharp, like his sentence. That night I didn't call him. I opened my laptop, pulled up the firm's internal metrics dashboard, billable hours, client acquisition, origination credits, partner succession notes buried in committee minutes. Yeah, because if marriage was the scoreboard in his world, I needed a different game. The next morning, I arrived early. 6:12 a.m., security guard nodded. Cleaning crew vacuumed quietly. Lake Michigan still dark. I liked the office before it woke up. No ego, no posturing, just numbers. Our firm was strong in litigation, weak in tech advisory, dependent on 3 major clients for 38% of revenue. One of those clients was Redwood Analytics, a Chicago-based AI startup about to scale nationally. Redwood was assigned to Marcus's mentor, senior partner Wallace Green. Wallace was 63, rumored to retire within 18 months. Marcus was positioned as his heir, except Redwood's last 2 quarterly reports showed dissatisfaction markers, delayed filings, slow response times. I noticed something else. So, every memo Redwood had sent over the last year carried the same subtle complaint. We require more proactive restructuring strategy. They weren't asking for litigation. They were asking for someone like me. That afternoon, Marcus texted, Marcus, you mad? Me. Busy. Marcus, don't take it personal. Me. I'm not, and I wasn't. Personal is emotional. This was structural. At lunch, I sat alone in the firm cafeteria. Glass walls, minimalist furniture, downtown skyline stretching wide. 2 junior associates whispered nearby. Marcus is basically a lock for Green Spot. Yeah, unless the merger changes things. Merger. There it was again. A New York firm. East Coast powerhouse. Negotiations quiet but serious. Mergers destabilize hierarchies. Destabilization creates opportunity. That evening, Marcus showed up at my apartment unannounced. South Loop, high-rise, Target bags still on the counter from a rushed grocery run. He leaned against my kitchen island. You've been distant. I've been working. He stepped closer. You know I didn't mean it like that. Like what? The marriage comment. I met his eyes. What did you mean? He hesitated. You're just intense. Most guys want something softer. I nodded slowly. Then they should find it. He studied my face. You don't care? I reached for my water glass. I care about different things. That unsettled him because he expected defense, apology, adjustment. Instead, I adjusted my goals. The next morning, I drafted a memo. Subject, strategic restructuring pathways for AI expansion, Redwood Analytics. I CC'd Wallace and Marcus. Professional, data-driven, direct. By noon, Wallace replied. Simone, impressive initiative. Mike, let's discuss. Marcus walked into my office 20 minutes later. You're stepping on Green's client. I didn't look up from my screen. I'm supporting firm growth. He shut the door behind him. Don't play naive. That's my path. I finally met his gaze. Paths aren't owned. His jaw tightened. You're proving my point. About what? He exhaled sharply. You always need to win. I leaned back in my chair. No, I need to build. He didn't like that answer, because it wasn't emotional. It was strategic. Later that week, Wallace invited me to sit in on Redwood's quarterly call. Marcus wasn't on the invite. He noticed. Marcus, why are you on Redwood now? Me, Green asked. Marcus, that's my client. Me, it's the firm's client. He didn't respond. On the call, Redwood's CEO sounded frustrated. We need forward-looking advisory. Not just reactive litigation. I spoke up. We've modeled 3 expansion scenarios. I'd like to walk you through them. Silence, then interest. By the end of the hour, the CEO said, I'd prefer Simona's point on restructuring moving forward. Wallace cleared his throat. We'll coordinate internally. After the call, Wallace stopped me in the hallway. You see angles, others don't. Thank you. You thinking about partnership? I am. He nodded once. Good. That night, Marcus didn't text, didn't call, didn't show up. Instead, I received a forwarded internal email. From Wallace to Executive Committee. Subject, emerging leadership candidates. My name listed. Marcus's too, but for different divisions. Litigation and corporate strategy. The fluorescent lights above my desk hummed faintly. I stared at the screen. He said no man would marry a woman like me. Maybe. But firms don't marry. They promote. The next morning, he confronted me in the parking garage. Concrete pillars. Engine echoes. Cold air. You're positioning yourself. Yes. You could have talked to me. I did. When? In the glass corridor. He went quiet. I was trying to help you. With what? Understanding reality? I stepped closer. Which reality? Yours? He didn't answer. Cars rolled past us, commuters rushing, no one paying attention. Marcus, I said calmly, you measure worth in rings. I measure it in equity. His eyes narrowed. You're going to regret this. I tilted my head. Regret what? He didn't have a clear answer. Because I hadn't attacked him. I had just refused to shrink. That weekend, I visited my cousin in Hyde Park. She braided my hair in her living room, UE TV murmuring in the background. You look different, she said. How? Quieter. I smiled slightly. Strategic. She laughed. That's dangerous. It was. Back at work Monday morning, an internal calendar invite popped up. Closed-door partner strategy session. Attendees, senior partners plus select associates, my name included. Marcus is excluded. He passed my office later. Didn't look in, didn't smile, just walked by. And for the first time, I understood something clearly. He thought love required reduction. The firm required expansion. Only one of those systems rewarded growth. In the glass reflection of my office wall, I saw myself. Tailored navy suit, calm posture, eyes steady. He said no man would marry a woman like me. Maybe he was right. Because I wasn't auditioning for marriage, I was positioning for ownership. And the first piece had just moved. And I didn't celebrate. I recalibrated. The partner strategy session was scheduled for Thursday at 7 a.m., closed door, Executive floor, the kind of meeting associates whisper about but rarely enter. That week, I became smaller in all the right ways. I stopped correcting Marcus in meetings, stopped finishing his sentences, stopped offering him strategic suggestions after hours. Performance mask on, observation mode activated. The office smelled like lemon disinfectant and printer ink that Monday morning. Cleaning crew had gone heavy on the polish. Everything shined. Everything felt staged. Marcus leaned against the copy machine near my office. "You're really going for it." "I'm working." "You're maneuvering." I shrugged lightly. "Isn't everyone?" He studied me like I'd switched languages. "You don't even argue anymore." "About what?" "Us." I met his eyes calmly. "We're fine." We weren't. But the shift wasn't romantic. It was structural. That afternoon, I pulled internal succession projections from the firm's archived planning folder, buried 3 clicks deep under governance review. Wallace Green's projected retirement, Q4 next year. Contingency successor, Marcus Hale. But under that note, in small gray text, subject to client retention stability. Client retention stability? Redwood Analytics accounted for 14% of Wallace's billables. If Redwood shifted primary contact to me, the math changed. I requested an informal check-in with Redwood's CFO, framed it as strategic continuity planning. He agreed. We met at a West Loop steakhouse Wednesday evening. Loud crowd, clinking glasses, to low jazz humming through overhead speakers. He didn't waste time. "You're the only one who anticipates our scaling risks. That's my job." "No," he said, cutting into his fillet. "It's not. It's above your level." I didn't smile. "Maybe my level needs updating." He looked amused. "You're ambitious." "Yes. I respect that." I left dinner with something more valuable than praise. I left with leverage. The next morning, Marcus knocked on my door without waiting. "You went to dinner with Redwood?" "Yes." "You didn't tell me." "I wasn't required to." He shut the door behind him. "You're isolating me." I tilted my head slightly. "I'm differentiating." His jaw flexed. "This isn't a competition." I held his gaze. "It never was." That unsettled him more than anger would have. Because competition implies equals. Strategy implies hierarchy. Later that day, HR sent a firm-wide email. Diversity and Leadership Initiative, Associate Advisory Seat available. Marcus forwarded it to me with a single line. Token politics. I stared at the message. Then I clicked Express Interest. The Diversity Committee wasn't about symbolism. It was about access. Access to compensation structures, access to hiring forecasts, access to merger briefings before they hit general circulation. The meeting was held in a smaller conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows facing south. Warm light poured in, reflecting off polished wood tables. Senior partner Alvarez chaired it. "Simone," she said, scanning my resume, "you've had significant client growth this year." "I focus on sustainability." She nodded approvingly. "We need associates who understand structural longevity." Longevity. Ah, that word mattered. Marcus thought in milestones. I thought in systems. By Friday, my calendar held 3 new recurring invites. Executive budget review, client retention analysis, merger feasibility briefing. None included Marcus. He started staying later, walking past my office more often, watching. One night around 9:40 p.m., he stopped at my doorway. The office was dim, only desk lamps lit. Chicago's skyline blinking outside. "You're changing. I'm evolving." He stepped inside. "You don't even look at me the same." I closed my laptop slowly. "How should I look at you?" He hesitated. "Like we're building something." "We are?" His expression softened. "Then why does it feel like you're building alone?" I stood, walked to the window, because explaining strategy to someone invested in control is wasted energy. "You told me no man would marry me," I said evenly. He exhaled. "I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" "I meant, you're intimidating." "Is that disqualifying?" For most men. I'm not most men. I turned to face him fully. That's the problem. He didn't understand. He still thought this was about affection. It wasn't. It was about infrastructure. The following Tuesday, Redwood formally requested a restructuring proposal under my authorship. In writing. Official letterhead. That email hit Wallace's inbox at 8:03 a.m. By 8:11 a.m., Wallace forwarded it to the executive committee. By 8:22 a.m., Marcus texted. Marcus, what did you do? Me. Prepared. Marcus, you're forcing this. Me. I'm responding to demand. He came to my office again. You're undermining Green. I'm strengthening Redwood. That's not your lane. Lanes expand. He laughed sharply. You think you can just rewrite the firm's hierarchy? I held eye contact. I think hierarchy adjusts to revenue. That stopped him, because in law firms, revenue is gravity, and I was starting to bend it. Thursday morning arrived. Partner strategy session. Executive floor felt different, quieter, carpet thicker, air cooler. I walked in carrying a leather portfolio, calm, composed. Wallace nodded toward a seat near the head of the table. Marcus wasn't there. Senior partner Alvarez opened discussion. With merger talks accelerating, we must reassess leadership placements. Charts projected on screen. Revenue trends. Client volatility forecasts. Redwood highlighted in bold. Alvarez looked at me. Simone, you've been interfacing directly. Your assessment? I stood. Projected 3 slides. Data-driven, clear, no fluff. If Redwood scales nationally within 18 months, we'll need a dedicated corporate strategy division integrated with litigation support. Without that, we risk losing them to a New York competitor. Silence. Not shocked. Measured. Wallace folded his hands. And who would lead that division? I didn't hesitate. I would. No apology, no smile, just statement. Alvarez exchanged a glance with another partner. Noted. When I stepped out of that room 45 minutes later, the city felt brighter. Not because I'd won, but because I'd entered. Marcus was waiting near the elevators. You were upstairs. Yes. What did they discuss? Future structure. He searched my face. You're serious about this? I've always been. He shook his head slowly. You don't slow down for anyone. I stepped into the elevator. Not for ceilings. The doors closed between us, and for the first time I saw it clearly. He wasn't threatened by my ambition, he was threatened by my detachment, because ambition he could compete with, detachment he couldn't control. That night, I updated my resume. Not to send, to anchor myself. Howard Law, top 10%, corporate restructuring specialization, client growth, 27% year over year, no mention of relationship status, no footnote about softness, just measurable impact. The next morning, an internal memo circulated quietly among senior staff. Merger exploratory meeting scheduled in New York. Select candidates invited to observe. My name was included. Marcus's wasn't. He stared at the memo on his screen, then at me. You knew. I prepared. He exhaled slowly. You're playing a long game. Yes. For what? I met his gaze calmly. For position. He swallowed. And us? I adjusted the stack of files on my desk. We'll see where you land. His face shifted, because for the first time, he wasn't evaluating me. He was being evaluated, and the scale had already tipped. The office air felt different after that memo, cooler, measured. Like the building itself was watching to see who would rise with the merger and who would quietly fade into mid-level obscurity. Redwood's formal restructuring request landed on my desk that Monday morning with a physical copy stamped by their legal department. Heavy paper, matte finish. Authority in texture. Primary strategic contact, Simone Carter, ESQ. I ran my fingers across the embossed letterhead. Texture matters, because texture makes things real. Marcus stepped into my doorway without knocking, again. His tie was loosened, eyes sharper than usual. You pushed them. No, I said evenly. They chose. They've never bypassed Green before. Green's retiring. Not yet. Soon enough. He stepped fully inside and closed the door behind him. You think this is just about client growth? It always is. He studied me carefully. You're trying to displace me. I didn't blink. I'm positioning myself. He gave a short, humorless laugh. You sound like a partner already. Good. That answer irritated him more than defiance would have, because confidence without aggression feels inevitable. That afternoon, Wallace called me into his office. His room smelled faintly of old leather and cedar polish. Books lined every wall. Framed degrees from institutions older than most cities in America. He gestured for me to sit. Redwood wants you leading their expansion restructuring. I'm aware. He folded his hands slowly. Marcus has been preparing for that client transition for 2 years. I've been preparing my whole career. He watched me for a long second. You're not wrong. I held eye contact. I'm not here to compete with Marcus, Wallace. I'm here to expand the firm. He leaned back. And if expansion requires reshuffling leadership, then leadership reshuffles. A faint smile touched his lips. You don't hesitate. No. Good. The New York partners don't respect hesitation. New York? There it was again. The merger wasn't rumor anymore. It was gravity. That evening, my phone buzzed nonstop in our firm's associate group chat. NYC exploratory meeting confirmed. Only senior associates invited. Who's going? Names started circulating. Mine included. Marcus is not. He called instead of texting. Are you trying to embarrass me? I was sitting on my couch, laptop open, drafting a restructuring model. No. That's exactly what this looks like. Then adjust how you're looking at it. Silence. Then quieter. You're supposed to be with me. I let that hang. With you where? On the same level. I closed my laptop. I don't plan to stay on the same level. He inhaled sharply. You've changed. No, I said softly. I stopped shrinking. He didn't have a response for that. The next day, Redwood's CEO requested an in-person strategy session at their River North office. Glass building, startup energy, espresso machines that cost more than rent. I walked in wearing a charcoal suit and a calm expression. Marcus wasn't invited. Inside the conference room, sunlight streamed across a long white table. The CEO leaned forward. Simone, if this merger affects our advisory stability, we need guarantees. You'll have them. How? I'll be embedded in the restructuring division directly. He nodded slowly. And your authority? I'm expanding it. Not someday. Now. He smiled slightly. I like decisive people. I don't gamble with clients. When I left Redwood's office, Chicago felt smaller somehow, like I was already standing half in New York. Back at the firm, whispers traveled fast. Redwood prefers her. Green's shifting weight. Marcus is furious. Furious wasn't accurate. Marcus was unraveling quietly. He stopped making eye contact in hallways, stopped offering commentary in meetings. But he watched. Always watched. That Friday, the firm hosted a networking mixer at a downtown rooftop lounge. City lights glittered. Music low. Expensive bourbon flowing freely. These events were performance art. I wore a sleek black dress under a tailored coat, minimal jewelry, intentional presence. Marcus approached near the bar. You look like you already belong in New York. I belong wherever I build value. He took a slow sip of his drink. You don't miss what we had? I considered that carefully. I miss who I thought we were. His expression tightened. I supported you. You supported a version of me. What version? The one that didn't threaten you. He opened his mouth to argue, closed it, because he knew. Across the rooftop, senior partner Alvarez gestured for me to join a small circle of executives. Marcus watched me walk away. That circle included 2 visiting partners from the New York firm. Sharp suits, direct eyes. One of them extended a hand. Simone Carter. Tuh. We've heard about Redwood. I hope good things. Profitable things. I smiled lightly. Same difference. We spoke for 20 minutes about scaling corporate advisory divisions, about AI compliance frameworks, about leadership succession. Not once did they ask about my relationship, only my results. When I left that circle, Marcus was gone. He texted at 1:12 a.m. Marcus, "Are you sleeping?" Me, "No." Marcus, "I don't recognize you anymore." I stared at the message, then typed, "Me, you never really did. I set my phone down." The following Monday, an internal announcement hit all inboxes at 8 a.m. Exploratory merger delegation, New York visit. Delegates listed, senior partners, select associates, Simone Carter, not Marcus Hale. He walked into my office at 8:14 a.m. No knock. "You're flying out Thursday?" "Yes." "You didn't tell me. You didn't ask." His eyes were tired now, less sharp, more unsettled. "You think this makes you better than me?" "No." "Then what?" "It makes me prepared." He ran a hand through his hair. "I was next in line." "For what?" "Green seat." I tilted my head slightly. "Seats aren't inherited. They're earned." "Yes." "And you think I haven't earned it?" "I think revenue decides." That landed heavy. He stepped closer. "Do you even care about us anymore?" I held his gaze. "I care about who I am becoming." "And if that doesn't include me?" I didn't answer, because some truths don't need performance. That afternoon, I finalized Redwood's restructuring proposal. 73 pages, financial modeling, expansion pathways, risk mitigation analysis. Why, I attached my signature block at the end. Simone Carter, Esquire Senior Associate, Corporate Strategy. It felt temporary, soon to be updated. As I printed the final draft, the copier's hum filled the room, sound steady, predictable, unlike relationships built on hierarchy disguised as romance. Marcus passed by the glass wall outside the copy room. He paused, looked in, and for the first time, he didn't look angry. He looked uncertain, because uncertainty is what happens when control slips, and control had been the foundation of his confidence. Thursday arrived. O'Hare Airport. Early morning, suitcase small, portfolio in hand. As I waited at the gate, my phone buzzed. "Marcus," I answered. "Yeah? I hope you get what you're chasing." "I will." "And if you don't?" "I'll build it." Silence on the line. "Ta?" Then softer. "I didn't mean to belittle you." "I know." "But you did." He exhaled slowly. "Are we done?" I looked out the airport window at planes lining the runway. I don't think we were ever aligned. He didn't argue, didn't plead. Just quiet acceptance. When the boarding call echoed overhead, I stood. Not as someone trying to prove a man wrong, but as someone stepping into leverage. As the plane lifted over Lake Michigan, Chicago, shrinking beneath the clouds, I understood something clearly. He thought my ambition threatened intimacy. But ambition isn't the opposite of love. Control is, and I was done negotiating with control. When I landed in New York, my phone buzzed with an internal firm notification. Redwood Analytics confirms exclusive strategic advisory alignment with Simone Carter. Exclusive. The word carried weight. Thus, because exclusivity in revenue shifts succession math. I smiled faintly. This wasn't revenge. Not yet. This was architecture. And by the time Marcus realized the structure had changed, the foundation would already belong to me. The foundation would already belong to me. New York smelled different. Steel, rain on pavement. Espresso and ambition layered together. The firm's Manhattan office occupied 30 floors of mirrored glass near Bryant Park. The lobby ceiling stretched high enough to intimidate anyone who walked in unsure. I wasn't unsure. I adjusted my blazer, checked my reflection once, and stepped inside. The merger exploratory session was held on the 32nd floor. Long walnut table, screens lining the walls. City skyline cutting through every window. The New York partners were direct. No small talk. No Midwest courtesy padding. "Simone Carter," one of them said, scanning his tablet. "Oh, Redwood Analytics. Yes. You've increased their projected valuation by how much? Projected national expansion increases their enterprise value by approximately 38% over 18 months, assuming compliance stability. He didn't smile. He nodded. Ambitious? Calculated. Across the table, Wallace observed quietly. He wasn't mentoring me now. He was assessing. Midway through the meeting, a question landed heavier than the rest. If merger integration requires leadership reassignment in Chicago, who's prepared to head a hybrid corporate litigation strategy division? I didn't wait for someone else to speak. I am. Direct eye contact. Steady voice. Not loud. Just certain. One of the New York partners leaned back. You understand that would mean supervising former peers? Yes. And potentially restructuring long-standing client assignments? If revenue demands it. They exchanged brief glances, not skeptical, interested. By the time the meeting adjourned, nothing official had been declared. But something had shifted. Authority had acknowledged me. Back in Chicago the following Monday, the office felt smaller again, like a model city I'd already outgrown. Marcus was waiting outside my office. You look different, he said. I'm tired. You look ahead. That too. He stepped inside. So, how did it go? Productive. That's it? That's enough. He studied my face carefully. You think they're going to choose you? I think I positioned myself. His voice tightened. You don't even hesitate anymore. I stopped asking permission. He let out a sharp breath. This isn't how partnership works. Explain it to me. You build alliances. You don't bulldoze. I leaned forward slightly. I'm not bulldozing. I'm building demand. He shook his head slowly. You're playing dangerous. No, I said quietly. I'm playing long. That afternoon, the Diversity and Leadership Initiative convened for its quarterly closed-door session. Conference room lights dimmed slightly against overcast skies. Alvarez opened with financial projections tied to merger outcomes. New York expects measurable diversification in leadership structures, she said. Not symbolic, structural. Her eyes met mine. Simone, you've demonstrated significant client origination growth. I nodded. Yo, we need candidates ready for executive integration. Translation, be prepared. After the meeting, Alvarez stopped me in the hallway. You're aware there will be resistance? Yes. From Marcus, among others. She tilted her head. You're not afraid? I'm prepared. She gave a small approving nod. Preparation outlasts fear. That evening, Marcus showed up at my apartment again. Unannounced. He stood in my kitchen staring at the skyline through my windows. You're not even trying to fix this. I set my bag down. Fix what? Us. I leaned against the counter. What's broken? He turned toward me. You don't need me anymore. That was the first honest thing he'd said in weeks. I never needed you, I replied gently. I wanted you. His expression shifted. And now? Now I want stability. I am stability. No, I said calmly. Your expectation. Silence stretched between us. He walked closer. You think you'll be happy if you win? This isn't about happiness. Then what? Alignment. He laughed softly, frustrated. You talk like we're in a boardroom. We are. Because relationships are contracts too, and ours had unequal clauses. The following week, an internal memo circulated under executive clearance. Preliminary integration plan, Chicago office. Draft only. Confidential. My name appeared under proposed corporate strategy lead. Marcus's appeared under litigation oversight, reporting structure TBD. Reporting structure. 3 small words. Huge implications. He stormed into my office mid-morning. You went behind my back. No. You've been lobbying. I've been performing. You're rewriting everything. I'm responding to revenue. His voice dropped. You're humiliating me. That stopped me, because humiliation implies intention. I'm not trying to embarrass you. I said evenly. I'm trying to advance. He stared at me. You used to look at me like we were building something together. I was. And now? Now I see separate trajectories. He swallowed. You could have slowed down. I won't. He stepped back. You're choosing power over partnership. I shook my head slightly. I'm choosing partnership that doesn't require shrinking. He didn't argue. He just looked at me differently. Not as a girlfriend, not even as competition. As inevitability. Later that afternoon, Wallace called both of us into his office. Marcus sat to my left, stiff, controlled. Wallace clasped his hands. Merger negotiations are accelerating. We both stayed quiet. Leadership reassignment is likely. Marcus spoke first. I've prepared for your seat for years. Wallace nodded. You have. Then he turned to me. Simone has expanded client value beyond projection. Marcus's jaw tightened. Wallace continued. This isn't about favoritism. It's about future structure. Marcus leaned forward. So what are you saying? Wallace's voice stayed calm. I'm saying Chicago will need hybrid leadership, and Simone is currently the strongest candidate. Silence. Not dramatic, just heavy. Marcus looked at me slowly. You did this. No, Wallace corrected gently. She earned this. The difference mattered. After we left Wallace's office, Marcus didn't follow me. Didn't speak. Didn't text. That night, I stayed late reviewing Redwood's expansion filings. The office lights were dim, city glowing outside in reflection. I walked past the glass corridor where he'd said it weeks ago. No man would marry a woman like you. The sentence felt distant now, smaller, almost irrelevant, because marriage had never been the prize. Authority was, and authority doesn't beg, it accrues. My phone buzzed near midnight. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. Simone Carter. This is Daniel Whitaker, New York Executive Committee. I straightened. Yes. We're finalizing integration proposals. Understood. There will be pushback in Chicago. I expect that. A pause. Are you prepared to supervise individuals who may resent you? Yes. Even if one of them is Marcus Hale? Silence lingered a half-second. Yes. He didn't hesitate. Good. The line clicked off. I stood there in the quiet office, phone still in hand. This wasn't personal anymore. It was structural confirmation. The next morning, Marcus avoided my gaze entirely, and for the first time, he looked smaller, not in stature, in certainty, because he was beginning to understand something. He thought my ambition made me unmarriageable, but in this building, ambition made me promotable. And when the official announcement came, it wouldn't feel like revenge. It would feel like correction. It would feel like correction. Chicago turned colder that week. Wind slicing down LaSalle Street. Coats buttoned tight. Conversations shorter. Inside the firm, temperature had shifted too. Not physically, politically. The merger announcement was scheduled for the following month. Integration committees meeting daily, titles being quietly tested in drafts before ink ever touched paper. Marcus stopped coming to my office, stopped texting, stopped performing concern. Instead, he performed distance. In meetings, he addressed me as Carter, not Simone. Carter, what's your projection on Redwood's Q2 compliance? Neutral tone. Controlled. Professional. I answered the same way. Redwood's compliance framework stabilizes under hybrid advisory. Revenue growth projects at 31% minimum. No softness, no personal inflection, just numbers. Yeah, because numbers don't date you, they rank you. Midweek, I received an updated integration draft. Subject, Chicago office, transitional leadership model. Proposed, managing partner, Chicago office, pending. Under that, corporate strategy division, lead, Simone Carter. Litigation, oversight. Marcus Hale, reports to Corporate Strategy Division. Reports to, 2 words, restructuring finalized in principle. Approval pending New York executive vote. My pulse didn't spike. It slowed, steady, controlled. Because once something becomes likely, panic disappears. Marcus must have seen it too. He walked into my office that afternoon without knocking, but slower this time. No sharp movements, no raised voice, just tired clarity. They're serious. Yes. You'll supervise me. That's what the draft says. He exhaled slowly. I didn't think you'd go this far. I didn't either. That surprised him. What changed? I held his gaze. You told me who I was. He frowned slightly. I said something stupid. You revealed something structural. His brow tightened. Structural? You believe a woman's ambition must soften for love to survive. He opened his mouth, closed it, because denying it would feel dishonest now. You're choosing power, he said quietly. I'm choosing alignment. With what? With who I've always been. Silence. He looked around my office like it already belonged to someone else. I used to think we were building a life. We were building a ceiling. He swallowed hard. That's not fair. It's accurate. The breakup didn't explode. It thinned, like fog lifting gradually instead of lightning striking. That Friday, we had dinner scheduled with friends in River North. Couples night. I canceled. Texted the group chat. Work conflict. You all enjoy. Marcus went alone. That told me everything. He wanted witnesses. I wanted leverage. The following Monday, Wallace officially submitted his retirement notice to Executive Committee. Effective immediately upon merger finalization. Earlier than projected. Internal emails circulated at 9:03 a.m. Shock rippled through the firm. Not chaos, just recalculation. Marcus walked straight to Wallace's office. Door closed for 30 minutes. When he emerged, his face was pale. He didn't look at me, but I knew. The seat he'd been preparing for had evaporated into merger restructuring. Succession wasn't automatic anymore. It was competitive. That afternoon, Redwood's CEO called me directly. Simone. Oh, I've heard about Wallace's retirement. Yes. We're prepared to formalize our advisory alignment under your leadership. Understood. We'll require written assurance in the new structure. You'll have it. He paused. Your name will be listed as primary executive contact. I glanced at the integration draft on my desk. Soon, it would be official. Thank you. After I hung up, I forwarded a formal alignment memo to Executive Committee. Attached, Redwood's signed letter of intent. Clear language. Revenue commitment contingent upon my leadership. Not subtle, not aggressive, documented. Documented power is the safest power. Later that week, HR scheduled transition meetings for key divisions, mine included. Marcus's scheduled immediately after mine. We passed each other in the hallway. No words, just acknowledgement. Inside the HR conference room, fluorescent lights buzzed faintly overhead. The director smiled politely. Simone, assuming executive approval, you'll assume interim managing partner responsibilities for Chicago. Interim. Always interim before permanent. You'll oversee both corporate strategy and litigation until full integration stabilizes. I understand. Are you prepared for internal resistance? Yes. We'll document reporting structures under County Court Record Hash 2025 CV 11873, signed by Notary Public, to formalize merger compliance. Legal reinforcement? Paper trail. Irreversible. I nodded once. After my meeting ended, I stepped into the hallway. Marcus was seated outside HR's office. He looked up at me. Not angry, not bitter, just recalibrating. They told you? He asked. Yes. And? It's moving forward. He stared at the carpet briefly. I built my entire plan around Green's seat. I know. You built yours around the merger. Yes. He gave a small, hollow laugh. I underestimated you. You underestimated the system. He shook his head slightly. No, I underestimated your willingness to outgrow me. There it was. Honesty. Finally. I never wanted to outgrow you, I said quietly. I wanted to grow with you, and I asked you to shrink. Yes. He nodded once. Acceptance. The following evening, he came to my apartment one last time. No dramatic energy, no raised voice. He stood in my living room, hands in pockets. So this is it. Yes. You don't hate me. No. You just don't need me. I considered that carefully. I don't need permission. He looked around the space, the skyline glowing behind him. You're going to be good at this. I know. And me? That depends on how you adapt. He let out a slow breath. I thought love meant being chosen. It does, I said softly, but not at the cost of self. He nodded. Then he left. No slammed door, no tears, just closure. The next morning, Executive Committee circulated final merger confirmation. Subject, integration approved, Chicago office leadership structure. I opened the email. There it was, managing partner, Chicago office, Simone Carter, corporate strategy and litigation oversight unified under managing partner, litigation oversight director, Marcus Hale, reports directly to managing partner. No dramatic music, no applause, just text on a screen. But text shifts worlds. Within minutes, internal messages started flooding in. Congratulations. Well deserved. Historic. Marcus didn't message. He didn't need to. At 10 a.m., a firm-wide meeting was scheduled in the main conference hall. All associates, all partners. I stood near the front as executives prepared remarks. Marcus sat in the second row, direct line of sight. Alvarez took the podium. With merger integration finalized, we are proud to announce the new leadership structure for Chicago. She listed names. Then mine. Managing partner, Chicago office, Simone Carter. Applause. Polite. Measured. Professional. I met Marcus's eyes briefly. He didn't look angry. He looked aware. Because this wasn't revenge. It was structural inevitability. When the applause faded, Alvarez continued outlining reporting hierarchies. His name listed under mine. Clear. Undeniable. As the meeting adjourned, associates clustered around me offering congratulations, handshakes, smiles. Marcus stayed seated for a moment longer. Then he stood, walked toward me, stopped a few feet away. Managing partner, he said quietly. No sarcasm, just acknowledgement. Director Hale, I replied evenly. The shift was complete. He once told me no man would marry a woman like me. Maybe he was right, because the woman I am now doesn't ask to be chosen. She decides. She decides. The first morning I walked into the office as managing partner, the temperature felt different, not colder, controlled. The marble lobby echoed under my heels in a way it hadn't before. The revolving door sighed open behind me, letting in a ribbon of November wind. Security straightened slightly. Morning, Miss Carter. Miss Carter, not Simone, not associate, not you're intense. I nodded once. Good morning. Upstairs, my name had already been replaced on the frosted glass. Simone Carter, managing partner, Chicago office, clean lettering, permanent adhesive, titles are quiet power. Marcus was waiting inside the executive conference room when I walked in for our first division briefing. He stood when I entered. Professional reflex. The rest of the litigation team followed. I took the seat at the head of the table. Not dramatically, just naturally. Let's begin, I said. No shaking voice, no extra emphasis, just structure. We reviewed client allocations first. Redwood, transferred formally under corporate strategy. Marcus's primary docket shifted to compliance litigation support. He didn't interrupt, didn't argue. He took notes. That was new. Halfway through the meeting, Associate Patel raised a question. Reporting clarifications. Does litigation now route strategic approvals through your office? Yes, I answered. Clear. Direct. No apology. I saw Marcus register the language. Through your office. After the meeting ended, he lingered while others filed out. The room felt larger once empty. Sunlight sliced across the long table, reflecting sharp lines. You didn't enjoy that, he said. I didn't need to. You could have softened it. It wasn't personal. He nodded slowly. I know. That was the difference now. He knew. I'll need updated litigation projections by Friday, I said evenly. You'll have them. He paused at the door. Simone. I didn't look up from the agenda. Yes. Director Hale? The title landed gently but firmly. He exhaled. Nothing. He left. The following week tested the structure immediately. Redwood flagged an urgent compliance risk tied to interstate AI data transfer. If mishandled, it could trigger federal scrutiny. I called an emergency strategy meeting. Marcus walked in carrying a thick file. "You'll want to see this," he said. He slid a folder across the table. I opened it. Detailed litigation exposure analysis, thorough, sharp. He hadn't checked out. He had recalibrated. "Good work," I said. He blinked once, almost surprised. "Thank you." We worked side by side for 3 hours mapping risk mitigation. No tension, no sarcasm, just execution. At one point, he looked up from his notes. "You always wanted this." "Yes." "And you never said it out loud." "I didn't think I had to." He gave a small nod. "I didn't either." There it was again. 2 people who assumed alignment without clarifying direction. Ambition doesn't end relationships. Assumption does. By Thursday, Redwood signed off on the mitigation strategy. Crisis averted, revenue intact. New York Executive Committee sent formal commendation. Leadership stability confirmed under managing partner Carter. Documented again. Documentation turns doubt into precedent. Later that afternoon, I received a calendar invite. Performance evaluation. Director Marcus Hale. Scheduled for Monday, formal review, structured, institutional. I didn't move it. Monday arrived quiet. Gray sky pressing against the windows. Marcus entered my office at 9 a.m. exactly, on time, prepared. He sat across from my desk. I folded my hands. "Director Hale will review Q4 metrics." His jaw tightened slightly at the formality, but he nodded. We walked through performance indicators. Billables, client retention, litigation outcomes, strong, solid, predictable. Then I shifted. "Leadership adaptability." He looked up. "I've adapted?" "You have. And? You struggled initially with reporting transition." He didn't argue. "Yes." "Has that changed?" "Yes." I studied him carefully. "Why?" He didn't rush the answer. "Because resisting it didn't alter reality." Honest. Good. Continue. He leaned back slightly. "I built my identity around succession. When that structure changed, I mistook it for personal loss. And now? Now I see it as organizational correction." Organizational correction? He'd been listening. I nodded once. "Your metrics remain strong. I expect continued compliance with strategic alignment." "You'll have it." There was no bitterness in his voice, just recalibration. Before he stood to leave, he hesitated. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "About? You." I didn't respond immediately. "I thought partnership meant someone fitting beside me." He exhaled slowly. "It means standing equal." "Yes," I said, "and sometimes standing ahead." He nodded once. "Congratulations, Simone." Not managing partner. Simone. But without diminishment. After he left, I sat still for a moment. Not triumphant, not vindictive, just aware. He once told me no man would marry a woman like me. Maybe he was right. Because the woman who sits behind this desk doesn't require validation in private to hold authority in public. That evening, I stayed late reviewing expansion proposals for the Chicago office. The city lights shimmered across Lake Michigan. Reflection in the glass showed someone composed, grounded, unreachable in the ways that matter. My phone buzzed with a message from my cousin. "You good?" I typed back. "Better." She sent a laughing emoji. "Dangerous." Maybe. But controlled danger built systems. The next morning, New York sent final notarized documentation confirming full merger integration under County Court Record Hash 2025 CV 11873, signed by Notary Public. Official, irreversible. Till Marcus forwarded the confirmation to litigation team with a simple line, "Please align all reporting accordingly. No ego, no commentary, just structure." That was the final shift. Not when I was announced. Not when he reported to me, but when he enforced the structure himself. Power isn't proven by dominance. It's proven when former resistance becomes reinforcement. And as I walked past the glass corridor where everything began, I felt nothing sharp, no metallic taste, no echo of insult, just clarity. He thought my ambition made me unworthy of marriage, but ambition made me worthy of authority, and authority doesn't ask to be loved, it asks to be respected. The next phase wouldn't be about proving anything, it would be about expansion, and expansion never apologizes. By December, Chicago's skyline turned silver at dusk. The lake looked like brushed steel. The firm's 28th floor reflected it all back at itself. We weren't stabilizing anymore. We were scaling. New York scheduled quarterly executive integration in Manhattan. This time, I wasn't an observer. I was presenting. Marcus stood in my doorway the morning before my flight. "You'll represent Chicago alone?" "Yes." "You don't want litigation presence? I want clarity." He nodded once. "You'll do well." "I will." He hesitated. "If they offer you permanent executive seat, I'll take it." He didn't flinch. "That would mean splitting time between cities." "Yes. And restructuring here again. If necessary." He gave a faint smile. "You never stall." "No." "Good." That was the closest thing to admiration he'd ever spoken without reservation. In New York, the boardroom felt smaller this time. Not because it changed, because I had. Daniel Whitaker opened the session. "Chicago performance exceeded projection under your leadership." "Thank you." "Redwood expansion stabilized interstate compliance." "Yes." "And internal resistance?" "Managed." He studied me carefully. "Would you accept permanent equity track placement if offered?" "Yes." No hesitation. Around the table, eyes exchanged quiet acknowledgement. One partner leaned forward. "Are you prepared for reputational scrutiny? Younger, female, managing a historically male-heavy office?" "Yes." "How?" "By outperforming narrative." That earned a slight smile. Meetings lasted 4 hours. By the end, I had verbal confirmation. Formal paperwork pending. Equity track managing partner, not interim, not temporary. Permanent. When I returned to Chicago, the office felt familiar in a different way. Ownership shifts perception. Marcus was reviewing briefs when I stepped into litigation. He looked up. "You got it." It wasn't a question. "Yes." He nodded once. "Permanent." "Yes." "Congratulations." No envy, no bitterness, just recognition. "I'll need your team's integration metrics by end of week," I said. "You'll have them." As I turned to leave, he added quietly, "You were always going to win." I paused. This wasn't about winning. He gave a small, knowing look. It was about not shrinking. "Yes." He leaned back in his chair. "I see that now." Later that week, HR finalized equity documentation. Shares allocated, voting rights assigned, compensation adjusted, numbers reflecting structural permanence. I signed the paperwork without trembling. Because permanence isn't loud, it's steady. That evening, the firm hosted a formal holiday reception in the main atrium. White lights strung across glass railings, jazz trio playing near the staircase. Associates dressed sharper than usual. Whispers followed me now. Not gossip, expectation. Marcus approached near the balcony overlooking the lobby. "You remember what I said in that corridor?" "Yes." He nodded slowly. "I thought ambition made you less desirable. It made me less controllable." He didn't argue. "That scared me." "I know. You don't hate me." "No. You don't need me." "I don't need permission." He studied me carefully. "You'll never settle." "No." "And someone will have to meet you there?" "Yes." He extended his hand. "Professional, deliberate. Managing partner." I shook it. "Director Hale." We both almost smiled. Not romance, not rivalry, resolution. Across the room, senior partner Alvarez raised a glass during her toast. To leadership evolution. Eyes shifted subtly toward me. Applause followed. Polite, measured, professional. As the night wound down, I stepped onto the balcony alone. Chicago glowing beneath me. Lake Michigan dark and endless. The same city where he once tried to define me, now structured beneath my oversight. I thought about that sentence again. "No man would marry a woman like you." Maybe. But marriage had never been my metric. Growth was. And growth demands courage, not softness. My phone buzzed. New York. Equity documents officially recorded. Integration sealed. No reversal possible. Structural permanence. I slipped the phone back into my clutch. Inside, laughter rose softly from the atrium. Outside, the wind pressed against the glass. I wasn't unreachable because I rejected love. I was unreachable because I refused to negotiate worth. Marcus stepped onto the balcony quietly. "For what it's worth," he said, "I would have married you." I didn't look at him. "I would have outgrown you." He gave a small, resigned laugh. "Probably." We stood in silence for a moment. Not uncomfortable, just complete. "I'm glad it was you," he said. "Why?" "Because you built it, not inherited it. That mattered. Inheritance is luck. Architecture is discipline." He stepped back inside. I stayed a moment longer. The glass reflected my silhouette against the skyline. Calm, grounded, expanded. The insult that once felt metallic now felt distant, small, irrelevant. Because it was never about marriage. It was about hierarchy. And hierarchy shifts when value shifts. Yeah. I turned and walked back into the reception. Associates approached with questions about next year's growth plans. Expansion into Detroit. Potential Houston satellite office. More scaling, more structure. No ceiling, no apology, just forward. The next chapter wouldn't involve proving him wrong. It would involve proving myself consistent. Because real power isn't dramatic. It's sustainable. And sustainability is the quietest revenge of all. January arrived with sharp light and sharper expectations. The first full partners meeting of the new year was scheduled in the main conference hall. Not the associate floor, not the executive suite, the center. Symbolism matters in institutions. I reviewed the agenda at 6:30 a.m. alone in my office. Expansion review, equity distribution confirmation, litigation performance realignment, Chicago-New York integration metrics. My name chaired every line item. Through the glass wall, I could see associates filtering in slowly. Dark suits, tablets in hand, eyes calculating. Leadership changes alter oxygen levels. People breathe differently around authority. Marcus entered precisely at 8:55 a.m., 5 minutes before start time. He didn't look at me immediately. He scanned the room, noting seating. Hierarchy has choreography. When I walked in at 9 o'clock, the room rose, not dramatically, just reflexively. I didn't rush, didn't smile wide, just nodded once and took the head seat. "Let's begin." Clear voice, measured tone. We opened with financial performance. Chicago office exceeded merger stabilization targets by 12%, I said. Slide changed. Redwood Analytics expansion secured multi-state advisory lock-in under revised compliance framework. Another slide. Litigation realignment completed under Director Hale's oversight. Marcus gave a brief nod at his mention. Not defensive. Acknowledged. As the presentation moved forward, I watched the room shift. They weren't questioning if I could lead anymore. They were evaluating how far I'd go. Halfway through, senior partner Alvarez addressed the room. So, with equity track confirmed and integration stabilized, Chicago now operates under permanent managing partner Carter. Permanent. The word settled differently this time. Not sharp, solid, no applause, no theatrics, just acceptance. After the meeting adjourned, associates gathered in small clusters discussing strategy shifts. Marcus approached as the room thinned. "You handled that well." "I prepared." "You always do." A pause. "You don't miss the chaos?" "What chaos?" "Before, when we were equals." I held his gaze. "We were never equals." He didn't argue. He understood now. That evening, I received a formal notification from County Court confirming final merger filing approval and equity restructuring certification. County Court Record Hash 2025 CV 11873, filed, notarized, permanent. Paper Trail's Anchor Authority. Documentation removes doubt. The following week, I implemented the next structural shift. Litigation performance incentives tied directly to corporate advisory growth. Cross-division accountability. Marcus reviewed the draft proposal in my office. This consolidates your authority further. It consolidates firm revenue. He scanned the language carefully. You're eliminating internal silos. Yes. And informal power. Yes. He leaned back. You really never intended to stay mid-level. No. Even when we started dating? No. That answer hit him differently. He gave a faint smile. I mistook confidence for ego. And I mistook charm for alignment. We both absorbed that quietly, not bitter, just factual. 2 weeks later, New York requested Chicago host the National Leadership Summit. Symbolic recognition. Hosting means dominance within structure. I coordinated logistics personally, venue secured, agenda drafted, speaker list finalized. Marcus volunteered to handle litigation panel coordination. Under your direction, he said evenly. Professional, adaptive. Summit day arrived cold and bright. Executives from 5 cities filled the conference hall, name badges, networking hum, authority concentrated. When I stepped to the podium to open the summit, the room quieted without request. I appreciate everyone traveling to Chicago, I began. Integration is no longer theory. It is measurable reality. I outlined growth metrics, expansion plans, Detroit satellite feasibility study, Houston exploratory mapping, forward motion. Marcus presented later that afternoon. Clear, sharp. No ego bleed. At the end of his panel, someone asked, Director Hale, how has reporting under a younger managing partner impacted litigation strategy? The room stilled slightly. Marcus didn't hesitate. It improved it. Murmurs. He continued. Hierarchy based on performance clarifies focus. We operate cleaner. That wasn't flattery. It was admission. After the summit ended, Daniel Whitaker pulled me aside. You've stabilized Chicago faster than projected. I anticipated resistance. You neutralized it. I aligned incentives. He nodded slowly. You'll be considered for national advisory seat next year. Expansion again. Always forward. That night, after the building emptied, I stood alone in the glass corridor. The same corridor where everything shifted. The wind rattled faintly against the windows. Chicago stretched wide and glittering beneath. Marcus walked up quietly beside me. Full circle, he said. Yes. He looked at the glass. At the time, I thought I was protecting myself. From what? From feeling small. You wouldn't have felt small if you'd grown. He nodded slowly. I see that now. A long pause. You don't resent me. No. You thank me. I considered that. Yes. He looked surprised. For what? For clarity. He exhaled softly. I underestimated you. You underestimated structure. He gave a small laugh. That too. We stood in silence for a moment. Not as lovers, not as rivals, as professionals who had survived correction. You'll keep climbing, he said. Yes, and I'll keep adjusting. If you want to. He nodded once. I do. He turned to leave, then stopped. You know, he added quietly, someone will marry you. I smiled faintly. If they qualify. That made him laugh fully for the first time in months. Not wounded, not threatened, just aware. After he left, I remained in the corridor a moment longer. The insult that once felt defining now felt microscopic. Because worth measured by someone else's comfort is fragile. Worth measured by your own expansion is permanent. I walked back to my office, closed the door, sat at my desk. The skyline reflected across the glass behind me. Uninterrupted, unapologetic, unreachable in the ways that matter. The structure had shifted, the hierarchy had corrected, and the woman he thought would never be chosen now did the choosing. The structure had shifted, the hierarchy had corrected, and the woman he thought would never be chosen now did the choosing. By early spring, Chicago softened. Snow melted into gray slush. The lake reflected pale blue instead of steel. Light lingered longer through the office windows. Growth had moved from stabilization to acceleration. New York formally invited me to sit on the National Advisory Council beginning next fiscal year, not an observer seat, voting authority. Marcus was the first to knock on my office door after the email circulated. You're expanding again. Yes. That'll pull you into national oversight. It will. He stepped inside, closing the door gently behind him. Most people plateau after securing equity. I'm not most people. He smiled faintly. I know. I gestured to the chair across from me. Sit. We need to review litigation forecasts. He sat without hesitation. We worked through performance dashboards. Efficiency up, internal resistance down, cross-division reporting stabilized. You've rebuilt your team well, I said. I had to. Why? He met my eyes. Because if I didn't evolve, I'd become irrelevant. I nodded once. Correct. That word didn't bruise him anymore. It clarified him. Later that afternoon, HR requested my presence for a final executive compliance audit tied to merger integration. Formalities, documentation. We reviewed filings, governance certifications, and executive authority signatures. The compliance officer slid a thick folder across the table. All structural adjustments finalized under County Court Record hash 2025 CV 11873. No pending disputes. Permanent, locked, authority sealed. No? When I returned to my office, Marcus was waiting outside. I just finished my annual review summary, he said. Send it. I'd prefer to discuss it. I glanced at the clock. Come in. He closed the door behind him. No tension, no edge, just evaluation. I wanted to acknowledge something, he said carefully. I folded my hands on the desk. Go ahead. I used to believe leadership meant dominance. And now? It means adaptation. He paused. And sometimes stepping aside. Silence lingered gently. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Because I want it documented. Documented. That word carried weight between us now. Documented how? In my performance narrative. He handed me a printed sheet. Under leadership reflection, he had written, transition under managing partner Carter required recalibration of personal expectations and professional identity. Adaptation strengthened division performance and clarified organizational alignment. Honest, clear, no bitterness. I looked up at him. You're not competing anymore. No. Why? He gave a small, measured breath. Because competing with structure is futile. You built it. That acknowledgement felt heavier than applause ever could. Weeks later, during a national advisory conference call, a partner from Houston asked bluntly, Simone, how did you neutralize internal resistance so quickly? I didn't soften the answer. I didn't neutralize it. I aligned incentives and documented authority. And personal conflict? I separated it from structural decisions. Across the table in Chicago, Marcus listened silently. After the call ended, he said quietly, You never attacked me. I didn't need to. You could have. Yes. Why didn't you? I considered that carefully, because this was about correction, not revenge. He nodded slowly. I see that now. Spring moved into early summer. Chicago warmed. Windows cracked slightly in the mornings. Light filled the corridor where everything once shifted. One evening, as we wrapped up late after a long advisory review, Marcus lingered again. Can I ask you something? Yes. If I hadn't said what I said, would things be different? I leaned back in my chair. No. He absorbed that. You were always going to do this. Yes. And I was always going to feel threatened. Probably. He smiled faintly. Then maybe the sentence just accelerated it. Yes. He nodded slowly. Then I'm glad it happened. That surprised me. Why? Because it forced clarity. Clarity. That word had carried us through every stage. Without it, we would have drifted. With it, we separated cleanly. The following month, the firm released its annual leadership report. Chicago office featured prominently. Revenue growth, cultural restructuring, hybrid advisory success. My name printed beside measurable impact. Marcus's name listed beneath mine under division performance metrics. Clear hierarchy, no ambiguity. At the annual shareholders' dinner, Daniel Whitaker toasted Chicago's transformation. To structural courage, he said. Eyes turned subtly toward me. I didn't smile broadly. I just acknowledged it. After the event, Marcus joined me on the terrace overlooking the river. The city glowed gold under summer light. You know, he said quietly, I used to think marriage was the ultimate validation. And now? Now I think respect is. I met his gaze. You've learned. Yes. And you? I never forgot. A breeze moved between us. No tension, no longing, just completion. You're not unreachable, he said after a moment. I am, I replied softly. From what? From negotiation about my worth. He nodded slowly. That's fair. We stood there without needing more words. Because the confrontation had already happened. Not loud, not explosive, just structural. He once believed I needed to be chosen. Now he reported to me. Not because I punished him, but because I refused to shrink. As I walked back into the building, heels steady against stone, I realized something fully. This story was never about humiliation. It was about hierarchy correction. And correction, when done properly, feels inevitable. Warm air drifted through the corridor windows in the early mornings. Lake Michigan shimmered instead of glared. The city looked less defensive. So did the firm. 6 months had passed since the merger finalized. 3 since my equity became permanent. 2 since I joined National Advisory. Stability wasn't a rumor anymore. It was documented performance. On a Tuesday afternoon, I received a formal calendar invite. Annual Executive Review, Director Marcus Hale. Final evaluation of the fiscal year, structured, measured, institutional. He arrived exactly on time. Dark navy suit, no loosened tie, no visible tension. He sat across from my desk the same way he had months before. But this time, the energy was different. Not correction. Completion. I opened his file. Director Hale, we'll begin with litigation growth metrics. Yes. Clear voice. No edge. We reviewed numbers. Billables exceeded target. Team retention stabilized. Cross-division compliance seamless. You've met all performance expectations, I said. He nodded once. Thank you. I turned the page. Leadership adaptability exceeded projections. He almost smiled. I've had practice. Yes. Silence settled between us. Not heavy, just aware. He leaned forward slightly. Simone. Yes? I owe you something. I waited. An apology isn't enough. This isn't about apology. I know. He exhaled slowly. When I said what I said, I was measuring you by my insecurity. I didn't interrupt. I thought partnership meant someone adjusting to me. And now? Now I understand it means standing beside someone who doesn't need adjustment. I closed the file gently. You've evolved. I had to. He paused. Watching you build this forced me to confront parts of myself I avoided. That's growth. Yes. He held my gaze. You didn't destroy me. That wasn't the goal. You rebuilt the structure. Yes. And I either adapted or disappeared. I nodded once. You adapted. He sat back in the chair. Would you have respected me if I hadn't? No. He laughed quietly. Fair. There it was. No drama. No theatrical revenge. Just 2 professionals acknowledging transformation. I slid the evaluation across the desk. Your contract renewal is approved. Compensation adjusted accordingly. He looked down at the paper. You're generous. I'm accurate. He stood slowly, paused before leaving. I hope whoever marries you understands what they're standing beside. I met his eyes calmly. They won't be standing beside me. He raised an eyebrow slightly. They'll be walking with me. He smiled. For what it's worth. I'm proud of you. Thank you. No softness, no lingering, just respect. After he left, I remained seated for a moment. The office was quiet. Late afternoon light filtered through the glass, casting long reflections across the floor. I stood and walked toward the corridor. The same glass corridor, the same view of Lake Michigan. Different woman, different structure. His sentence echoed faintly in memory. No man would marry a woman like you. At the time, it felt like rejection. Now it felt like projection. He wasn't predicting my future. He was revealing his limitation. The truth is simple. Some men don't marry women like me, because women like me don't negotiate our scale, and scale intimidates those invested in control. I rested my palm lightly against the glass. Cool surface, solid reflection. I didn't win by humiliating him. I won by refusing to collapse, by documenting authority, by aligning revenue, by letting the system reward discipline. Ambition isn't aggression, it's direction, and direction doesn't pause for comfort. Later that evening, the Chicago skyline glowed gold against deepening blue. Associates filtered out for the night. Cleaning crews returned. The building exhaled. I walked back into my office, sat at my desk, reviewed next quarter's expansion proposals, Detroit satellite office, Houston advisory pilot, National advisory voting session agenda. Forward, always forward. My phone buzzed once. Unknown number. I answered. Simone Carter. A woman's voice responded. Hi, I was referred to you. I'm a junior associate considering partnership track, and I was told you might have advice. I leaned back slightly. About what? Balancing ambition and relationships. I smiled faintly. You don't balance them. Silence on the line. You align them. How? You choose someone who isn't threatened by your growth. Another pause. And if they are, then they're not aligned. She exhaled softly. Thank you. After the call ended, I stared at the skyline one more time. The insult that once cut now served as calibration. It forced acceleration, it clarified trajectory, it revealed incompatibility. He said no man would marry a woman like me. Maybe. But the woman I became didn't need a ring to validate her rise. She needed structure, documentation, equity, respect. And when he finally stood across from me, reporting, he understood. Not because I broke him. Why? But because I built something he couldn't ignore. Power isn't loud, it's consistent. And consistency is what turns doubt into inevitability. I turned off the lights in my office. The glass reflected only the city now, wide, open, unrestricted. And as I stepped into the elevator, descending through floors I now oversaw, I felt something steady. Not revenge, not triumph, authority, permanent. If you liked this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments.